Where you going? What are you drinking tonight? Let's keep them flowing. Where do you come from? Where are you going? What are you feeling tonight? And what are you showing? Where do you come from? 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 Where are you going? What are you drinking tonight? Let's keep them flowing.
All right, and we are live. What's going on? This is Cloud and Console special episode. You're here with the critics. Yes, I forgot to tell Maker I named us the critics.
Oh,
we are
nice.
getting into Armored Core 6, and that is a game today from Software. Has created the sixth game in the series, retailed for $60 UST. When the full price for games is actually retailing at $70 these days, so I will give it that. And the reason why I think I'm drawn to it is the same director as Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, so that's pretty awesome homage to me. But enough is enough from me. I'm joined by Maker of Chaos. Thanks for joining the show today. How are you
Yeah,
doing?
it's a pleasure. I'm doing good. Same old working and gaming.
Hey, what's going on? Reaver the Beaver, Callie Drew Voss, and Ray the Gaming Cyborg Pony Love. Hey, I will say that this game was available on PC, the first Armored Core to be available for PC,
Yeah.
and Xbox as well as PlayStation. So all consoles, and all console love here. This game is awesome. Thanks everyone for joining, and we are going to get into our thoughts on the game, each aspect of it. So I will dive into the first topic, asking some questions, and we'll kind of bounce off to each other here. So the story. How did you feel about the storytelling devices, i.e., the call panels specifically? How did you find that
Okay.
method? I mean, we were kind of dating back to, Metal Gear Solid days here. It's kind of an old storytelling device.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of Metal Gear, where you get that little message that pops up, and it's like, Snake, we need you to go do this. And yeah, I think it does a pretty good job of getting little bits of info from different people. I do wish there's like one thing that I wish that popped up was we got to see the image of the person within the mech. I wish that was a thing. Maybe to make it a little bit more personable. Um,
Yes.
but that was my main like issue with it. Like I would have liked to seen what they look like or who that person put a face to the voice, right?
All they did was put the call signs to them. However, what's an interesting deep dive into the interwebs is if you search the anime or the creations of these people, there's so much fan art for Walter, for the All Mind, for Air. I mean, it's for your character as well. It's really cool to see people go out there and create this stuff. And I will say, I hate to say, hey, leave it to the fans to fill in the gaps, but hey, they did a good job and it's cool to see. But I get what you mean. It would have been nice to see even like an overlay of just like Walter or something talking, or real cutscenes with these people. Perhaps Walter at
Yeah.
his desk, smoking a cigar, being like, "We got to
Oh
get you
yeah,
six
get
two
that vibe.
one." Like, get
That boss
Rusty's
vibe.
like, yeah, and we see all of like the red guns and whatnot. But yeah, it's kind of a dated storytelling device, and I find that a bit of a limitation on the game. They could have done more there. How did you feel about replaying the game just to get the final ending? Or did you feel that, for me, I felt like you could get off at any stop you wanted to. If you wanted the first ending, you could get off there as well. Hey, what's going on? Mostly Martinez. What's going on? Thanks for stopping on by. What's
Yeah,
illegal
yeah.
in some a pony love? Oh my gosh. Yes. What's going on? Oh, you stay
Uh,
calm.
to me, I thought, yeah, you could hop off it after the first ending if you really, really wanted to. But I would say to me, it enriched my experience with each progressive, until you got that true ending, because each iteration of beating the game added something to it, added new missions, new bosses that you'd run into. And I really like that aspect. And there's things that you can miss with your first playthrough. Different because you do decide with what missions you want to do. And yeah, I highly recommend maybe playing multiple times. But if you're satisfied with the first ending, that's fine as well.
What I will say is, if you're good at keeping track at what decisions you've made, like, I feel like they should highlight the decisions more, just so you know. Like, there should be if you're going down the air path, they should all be red decision markers. Like, it should be
Yeah.
keyed red.
Yep.
So you don't accidentally go like I did down the wrong path and then have to replay again because you got the air ending twice. So it should be more keyed out like that if it's going to go this way. Otherwise, you really need to have a guide, look it up, have it in front of you, make sure you're making all the right decisions.
I don't even think it needs to have like a red highlight for it. If all it really needs is on the description of it, have it signed with that particular person. Like this mission's good luck on your mission for this, signed Air or signed Walter, right? Or signed Carla, stuff like that. I think that would have, because it kind of gives you a hint at who you're working for this mission and kind of the goal that you're going to go towards.
That's a good point. I'd like that. It's a bit more from software as well.
Yeah.
You read through to get the read the fine print essentially.
Yeah.
What is a character in the story that stands out to you?
I think everyone would say this, but Rusty, Rusty,
Ah,
uh,
Rusty.
Air, or Aaron, however you say her name, she's also a very standout character, but then again, I feel like she stands out most, especially your first playthrough, and then the third playthrough.
I would say for me, and I know this is going to be cheese, but It's got to be Walter. I mean, he took a chance on you. He helps you out so much. He's getting you through what you need to get through in the beginning, and you know, sometimes you need somebody just to give you a shot out, or like just a shot in the beginning, and I give it out to Walter. But I will say one other person is that AC pilot from chapter 1, where he just wanted his own call sign. I mean, that still just breaks my heart when you had to go surprise the AC pilot and it becomes like your first sort of arena showdown and you take him out and then all he's like, "Oh, I just wanted my own name."
Yeah,
So
that
brutal.
was a good line. I like that. Like, to me, I almost wish there was more of that, more ambition, more, um, maybe you get to see what these people were truly going for, why they did what they did, type deal.
Yeah.
Um, and like
We
to
got to
me,
know Carla. Carla
Carla,
was a integral character, and when you had to, this is just full spoilers, so when you
yeah,
had to turn against her, I mean, I kept asking why, like, I don't want it, this feels wrong, like this lady saved me, she orchestrated the transportation I needed to get my job done,
yeah, she
like,
helped you get across the gap, right?
yeah,
Go through the transport uh,
she didn't tell you
cylinder.
about the spider, little BS, but
Well, I mean, I don't think she expected the coral machine to
oh, she
awaken.
didn't expect that. She was like, "Oh, I'll take two birds out with one. Like, he'll either die trying or he'll get rid of my issue."
I yeah, I mean, that's also a thing. I I wish there was a more, like, understanding path, one that kind of meets in the middle, or, like, maybe you could convince them otherwise, but I guess I could understand, why they didn't go that route. Uh,
uh,
but I like
if if I understand the end correctly, I mean everybody's gone, right? This isn't
just
full
about
spoilers. Yeah,
yeah, because like, the explosion of Rubiconians spread it across
yeah,
the galaxy, and it kind of, like, created this, another beginning for Rubiconians.
right. So I guess the ending is such a finality
Yeah.
in that way
Well, I mean, he
instead
also
of bringing
killed, like,
everyone
everyone
together. Yeah.
on the
So
way there.
it's a From Software. Everyone's together in their soul life.
Yeah.
uh,
It
it's sure it didn't have a good guy ending. Absolutely, unless I did things wrong. Unless they're hiding the good guy ending from you.
that's supposed to be, like, well, it's supposed to be the true ending. The good ending is, um I think the good one is where you defeat Walter, right?
Right, because Walter
Yeah.
is corrupted. You go against. No, I think the good ending would be taking out Air.
Thinking out the Rubiconians.
See, that's the thing. Yeah, I don't know what the good ending is because in one you would just be betraying the voices in your head, right? I like Walter, so the good ending is different for both of us. That's why the only true ending is everyone's gone.
Like, to me, the good ending would be to kind of find a middle ground, which I think would probably be the second ending, right? Because, I mean, you do have to kill Walter, but the Rubiconians live, and then it doesn't cause, like, an explosion or anything, so I think everybody else might still be alive. It's just, um well, I mean, have to kill Carla too, and that particular faction. But like Rusty's there towards the end of the second playthrough, and he's there helping you. I wish I wish he was in
Right.
a
Yeah.
bit
So you're
more.
kind of on the rebellion side, and you're on the
Yeah,
uprising. I see where you, the Star
we're on the
Wars, the
yeah, we're the
ending.
rebels, the
Yeah.
Rubiconian Liberation Front, I believe is what they're called.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's a game that takes you down some paths, and you start out as a blank contractor.
yeah,
Like most games we're seeing, it's three paths, right? There's right, left, and center. Well, this one maybe left of center, I don't know. But this is kind
yeah.
of the story patterns we're seeing with games these days.
Yeah. You did mention Walter, and to me, Walter really didn't like grab me probably as much as it grabbed you. To me, I always saw him as just kind of that mysterious figure that just kept giving me missions. I didn't really, maybe if I'd seen him struggle, like, or like actually fight for things. Well, I mean, obviously, you get to see him fight at the end where he shows up in the second ending, or your good, whatever, if you get the good ending.
Right.
Um, but I just wish it showed him more, like if, even if it showed his face and like him getting mad if we lose a mission, or like just that emotion that I needed him to provide. At least with like Rusty, you had this kind of bit where he helps you in the beginning. He has to leave, and then you see him later on where he's
Yeah, he
actually
leaves
hunting.
you.
He's hunting you because he thinks you're doing the bad thing, and it didn't make sense to me why he would attack you if you were going the good route, because if you were doing all the good missions to help out the Rubiconian Liberation Front, why would he attack you? Um and that's I wish he was a little bit more dynamic with the choice to feeling more natural, instead of it feeling like, oh, I'm doing the same thing again.
Right. Yeah, I get what you mean. If you're going through the true ending, you shouldn't have to do that to Rusty.
Yeah. And I'm also sad because, like, in the good ending, Rusty shows up, but in the true ending, he doesn't show up on the last couple missions. And I would have liked to seen him, like, maybe on that final fight where it's like you, Air, and um
Right.
against um
Yeah, you and Air team up against the All Mind. And
yeah,
the All Mind's like floating saucers.
yeah.
Yeah. It but then they didn't want to make it so many mechs. I mean, it's kind of odd that Air even shows up to help you in the end. Like I didn't need Air. Um
Yeah, I think I beat it a couple of times, so it wasn't that bad.
What's up, Ron Slusher? Is there any blood? There's explosions. I mean, I guess the explosion vaporized any blood that would be within inside the cockpit. But that's the thing.
Essentially.
There's no like cutscenes to show more emotion, and we're saying that part definitely lacked from the story element. It would have been nice to see even, you know, across of some my preferred thing, throw in anime. Throw in anime cutscenes. That would have made this game like another like, oh wow, it's got this and this, because this game is sort of an homage to a lot of anime mechs. Uh, and I
Yeah.
can't think of the anime mechs, but
Like Evangelion.
Gundam Wing would be the one that I would be familiar with. I know a lot of people have done cosplay look-alike builds. There's a lot of pieces that exactly replicate what these mechs look like. But
I've
yeah.
seen people do Evangelion themed ones, you know. Um, I love the customization in the game.
So we're gonna go, unless you have any final thoughts you want to talk about story, your relationship with Rusty. You know, I didn't even see, I saw Rusty as being like, I know he called you buddy and stuff, but it's like
Yeah,
you bailed on the first fight to go protect us from some threat. All right, Rusty.
yeah.
And then next time I see him, I blow him out of the sky like he's some punk. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I-
that's one thing, like, I wish it explained a bit more what he was doing on the side,
yeah,
like, maybe he was actually trying to help, create a freedom for the Rubiconians, and you just didn't see that, and maybe you find that, like, even have, like, a flashback where it's just like, "Oh, there's Rusty doing a mission, and he's like, 'This is what I've been doing all along, and I thought you weren't on my side,' and he maybe apologize for attacking you that one time." Um,
yeah. We needed some more backstory on other characters.
but I did like that he was consistent through the game, like, he showed up consistently, and he was, like, one of the only guys that kinda treated you nicely. All the other people were just like,
Yeah, the
"There you go, this
guns.
is your mission, do it," or
Yeah, the red guns were just like they never accepted you in any circumstance. Like they wanted you to be fodder. They were taking you on as like you were a backpack. They were carrying you. It was basically Maker carrying me in Bloodborne situation. But
I don't know,
uh
you put up the
it was it's banter back and forth where Rusty was one of the few characters who showed you respect, and he played that
yeah,
role
exactly.
until you had to blow him out of the sky.
Yep.
And then there was this character, which I'm seeing in the background, which I always considered to be Patches. He's the closest thing I think that Patches has, and we learned from a friend of ours in Discord that Patches originated in Armored Core 2 as a character who offered you a decision. And so you said that what's your thoughts on this? What's his name?
Um,
Swinburne? Do you think he's the
uh,
Patches character, or is
I mean,
he not resemble that?
it's effectively a Patches character. I mean, it's not named Patches, but he gives you the option to either stop fighting him or continue, which is in, like, every single Patches scenario that I know of.
Right.
Um, and I think that effectively makes him the quote unquote Patches character.
Yeah. Oh, I will say there is a reason to kill him. One reason is if you're collecting the battle logs.
Yep.
That's what the character behind him. However, I've noticed that it affects nothing on the storyline, whether good, right, left, or middle storyline.
Yeah, I that was a little disappointing. I wish that maybe he showed up later or
Yes,
that
same.
changed thing. Yeah,
If
because
he
at the
offered you
very
support in his situation later down the road, or
or new
because you left him
weapons.
alive, or a or maybe like a camouflage, some Patches weapon or something.
Yeah, it couldn't have taken a lot. I mean, just look at the Dark Souls patches. You save him, and then he comes back as a vendor most of the time.
Yeah, that's correct. But yeah, it's just some good fun. It's a nice homage to put into it. Uh, I
Yeah,
think he's Patches. So does Maker. So there we have it. But yeah, that's what we have for the story portion. Anything else you got on story before we move on?
I think
No.
that's it.
So I'm gonna move on to the difficulty factor now. Preference this Maker finishes games very quickly, and he is very good at games. So we'll take his comments on this section here. How did you find the difficulty they set in place? Because there is no easy, medium. It is just simply go out there and play.
I think it's close. I think the big thing that makes it difficult for me is I don't think there's enough bosses to really feel like I did struggle at like one or two of the bosses, but that's about it. Um, and uh, it doesn't help that there are some like really strong weapons that make your life super easy on them. Um,
Yeah, like the ones I'm using in the
in the
in the
video,
preview right
yeah,
there.
yeah. It and maybe I wish it was more. I understand like there's some weapons that can be used for all different types. Maybe show a little bit more importance on like maybe heavier armor characters a different weapon do more damage on them and make it actively like maybe put something that like says hey use this for a tank or like use this for someone who's a lightweight build and I never really saw that in terms of like weapons and that's my maybe my only complaint about it. But overall, I thought the difficulty was fine, and it probably would have felt, I guess, not so easy if there was just a couple more bosses towards the end.
Yeah, I agree. There there was a lot of situations where I would not struggle, where I would easily breeze through the game. There wasn't those like first of all, Demon Souls and the Tower Knight. That was a
It,
struggle. I mean, very difficult, huge boss. And I didn't feel like there that kind of overwhelming force. That helicopter in the beginning, that was, getting your legs trying to
yeah,
figure it out. Classic From Software difficulty bridge. I died maybe a couple times trying to get the hang of that. Now they needed more of that. They needed story moments where it's like, oh, boom, I lost my left hand and I only have this sword next to me that I picked up. Handicap me a little bit for a fight, make more two-phase bosses. There wasn't enough two-phase situations in my
yeah.
mind.
I didn't understand that. There's definitely a couple. Like there's even I think there was like one final fight that didn't even have two phases, which
Walter.
left it. Yeah, it
Walter
left it
was a single
lacking,
phase boss, and I thought, okay, here comes phase two, but no, that was
and it
it. I'm
never
like,
happened.
Walter, no, don't do this to me.
Yeah, that I agree. I think like more two phase boss fights. Like I don't know if I would count it as like a two phase, but man, the end of chapter one initially got me pretty good. That was the shield one, the shield one that has like the flame sword that it'll slice at you like the flame blade. You remember
Yeah,
what I'm talking?
the street sweeper, is that what we're talking about, or
Um, it's at the
the
end of
one where you
chapter
had to
one.
shoot inside the little box to get the damage?
Well, it had a like a barrier. Once you broke that barrier, then you could damage it.
Oh,
And then
the Baltius. The
yeah,
Balteus. Yeah, with the
yeah.
rockets everywhere. And then there was the second Balteus, the even more
Yeah.
difficult one on one path.
And that was on the good run, I believe. You had to
Right.
fight him.
And
Yeah.
that's what upset me because I beat that Balteus in one go and I'm like, I guess my build is too OP or something. I don't
It
know because
well, it was
yeah.
it because I swapped to because you had mentioned it, and as soon as I swapped to the needles, I beat him like second try. It was uh, I do think those guns are like really overpowered.
That's an issue. They need to slow down the rate of fire. They need to or after the first shots, they need to slow down the shield damage these things do because if you
Hey,
land these things, they're devastating.
yeah, yeah, and I think there should be weapons that do devastating damage, like the spike melee ability that does a ton of damage, but it
Yeah, I
also takes a lot
saw.
of it takes a lot of precision to land it. Now these, since they're like ranged attacks, they, in my opinion, they should have a longer cooldown for them. So like it takes longer. Maybe the enemy can rebuild it. That way you can space it out. Like shoot one, wait a little while, shoot the other, and that way you're slow. Like you're able to build up that stagger meter compared to you
Right.
just firing both at the same time, stagger them, and then blast the crap out of them.
And the same with these shotguns. I mean, if I'm going to fire long range, first of all, there's no such thing as long range shotguns. That's why shotguns are shotguns, because they're close range weapons. Like they just invented the shotgun being long range now. Um,
Yeah,
they need longer cooldown. I mean, these bullets should be hot coming out of the chamber. Uh, yeah, I mean, double
they're great
Zimmermans.
shotguns.
Double Zimmies, double needle that I'm using in the background here, I realized it was ultra cheese. But it
I'll tell
got the
you
job done.
what I use. I use the double needles, and then I use double bazookas. And so I'd like blast them with the
Wow.
bazookas after I stunned them.
But that's a heavier build.
It is, but I was running tank treads. So
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, that's a big build. Um, Staying on difficulty, compared to other Souls game, where do you think you would place this guy?
definitely on probably one of the more easier side.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
I'm thinking in all of the Souls game I've played, I would place it as the easiest one I've seen so far.
yeah, but I do think that's partially due to these really kind of broken builds that they've got. I mean, just I would say Elden Ring has some broken builds too. It just takes a while to get those. Where with these, with like even with the Zimmermans, when you get those in like Act Chapter 2 or whatnot, you could technically run those until the end of the game.
Multiple ends of games. I got tired of them. Ended up
Yeah,
switching it out just for fun because I was like, I can't just shotgun everything anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, so you would place it as the easiest From Software game you've played then? Or
I'd
has
say so, but I've never
yeah.
played any of the Armored Core the older Armored Core games.
Neither have I. I believe actually the predecessor to this was either a 215 release or a 218 release. Sorry, anyone who watches Armored Core or played Armored Core may crucify me for that,
I think
but
it's like 2014, 2015 ish.
yeah. Not available on the digital library though. I tried to go back and look for it.
No,
Well, the difficulty was definitely easy. If you're looking to get into it, it's not too much of a hurdle, but they do give you, I would always say that first playthrough, it is always the most difficult until you can get these OP builds. So, not
yeah,
saying that it is like a cakewalk, because after you get past that first chapter, which is brutal the first time, uh it becomes a lot easier.
yeah. You
But
start
I
getting the
feel like
hang of it too.
they're opening that accessibility door. And one thing I will say uh, is I wish there was a more difficult mode. Like I wish in New Game Plus it got recognizably more difficult.
I kind of agree too. Give me a bit more of a challenge, especially if you're going for something like a true ending. I feel like you should make something like that challenging. And the fact that I went in, beat it in a couple attempts, it just didn't feel super satisfying in comparison.
Yeah, I will agree. I mean, it just needed a bit more on the difficulty side. Give me the option. If you want to play it once through, then that's where you get off as the casual player. You enjoyed your time. Awesome. Now, people who want to go on, crank it up. That would be the one critique because it just kind of felt the same difficulty all throughout each
I would
each playthrough,
I would also
except for
say,
one mission.
yeah, uh, I would say arenas needed their difficulty upped as well. Maybe improved AI. because I
I will say that. Why
the
is
higher rankings
AI
were just too
so
easy.
unchallenging? Why aren't they getting okay? I see all these AI out there beating people in chess, beating the greatest minds in the world in chess. Why aren't those AIs beating me in Armored Core? I want to fight that AI.
I mean, I've played games where AI is it will kick your ass. Um, like to me, like Halo is usually one that is like if you play it on a harder difficulty, the AI will kick your ass because they'll like headshot you with
Yeah.
sniper rifles and stuff like that. Um,
Overwhelming force. Give me overwhelming force. Give
and
me a
with the
freaking
arenas,
Voltron. Like all these
like
mechs transform into one with a huge sword and shield. Like I want to fight that.
I remember fighting Sephiroth in something like Kingdom Hearts, and that it was like an extra challenge, kind of like these are, where they're like little missions that you can do on the side from the story, and having that awesome like one-on-one epic battle type deal. It just I I like that idea, and it to me they just didn't really feel that epic because they're too easy to kill.
Right. I mean, the side missions didn't feel like side missions. You know, if you went off to the side to go grab a battle log, for instance, in those early missions, and you went and fought that one guy, he was just more of a extra difficult ad on the way to your
Yeah.
end. Like it didn't have the weight or feeling of this is a challenge. So I feel like it did miss out on that, and everyone's scared of AI taking the world on. I mean, just leave it up to some
I
gamers. We'll take down the AI.
I like the idea behind the arena, like where you have no heals and it's just that 1v1. I really like that idea. I just think that the AI is just not smart enough, or maybe they didn't modify their builds enough to make them, I guess, unique, fun battles for you to fight. Like
Right.
I,
Give me
because like
more terrain. Make the
oh yeah,
AI give them the advantage. Give them an unrealistic advantage. Like I want double coral laser cannons that have no refresh
um,
and give that to the enemy.
oh,
Like
and then make it so that you earn those by defeating them.
yeah,
That would
oh
be
my god.
awesome. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much that they could have done towards at least on the higher difficulties. I think lower difficulties were fine. It's okay with the beginning of the arenas to be not hard, but when I got down to like rank A and S, it's like, bro, why am I knocking these guys out in one go? This should be like
Why would I want to copy that build? Like, there's no reason for me to
exactly.
copy. Yeah.
I want to see the build and be like, holy cow, I need to replicate what that person did. What weapons were they using?
Yeah. What did that AI do?
Yeah.
Um, I definitely feel that the arena kind of lacked. Most of those battles could be done in 30 seconds. You could really just like plow through these things. Make the AI pop off more energy assault things, like stop me from stunning them, like just do something. I definitely think smarter AI seems to be the issue in a lot of games recently. But that's being said, that the difficulty level is there for you in the story, but it's just lacking even more so in the arena.
I think what might have helped with like depth is if there was like more like EMP style things. So like
Oh, shut you down completely, or have that buff
or
build up quicker. That buff never built up
well
for me ever
well
in the
well the
game.
thing well the thing is like with like an EMP you could have it so that like the like like the energy weapons have them like take like a duration loss or like something where they don't work for a duration. So to battle something like that, you're gonna have to switch to like manually based weapons like machine guns or like rockets, something that isn't like a laser focused. I think that would have altered the game entirely, right? Um, and made it a little bit more depth where you did want to swap out. So like let's say those needle weapons wouldn't work because they're more energy based. So you'd be like, oh crap, I need to swap out to like the Zimmermans, or let me swap out to, rockets, missiles, stuff like that. And in that way it has this kind of modification system where you want to constantly change up, swap different things for different stuff.
Yeah, more resistances. Like
Yeah.
make like there were resistances in the game, but I needed more so. I needed something where my
Yeah.
stun needles were essentially useless, and I needed to use something else. I needed something where the shotguns were useless. I needed a full
Or
laser build.
or make it so that um the explosion damage, it was resistant to explosion damage, so you wanted to use something with piercing because they have like heavy armor, and so you wanted to use that like nail driver, or you wanted to use like a sword to pierce through, some
They
something of that
played with the
nature.
idea, but for some reason you could plow through it all and ignore it,
Yeah.
which is uncommon, I think, for From Software. Like they should have forced you more to be within their builds.
Yeah, like the in like Elden Ring with like the fire giant. If you're running with the fire build, you better swap to something different.
Yeah. There was nothing like that who could even stop this power of the stun needles and the zoomies. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wish there was something more like that. It's kind of out of place now. I'm gonna talk about here the call signs and the mech looks. Um, what did you get to end up customizing any call sign, or did you just take one that
I
they
took
gave you?
Yeah, I took one that they gave me. I
Oh,
think
okay.
I think the one that I'm using is one from one of the final missions, or like one of the final challenges. Let me see if I can't pull it up.
Like the one that I made, I sat in there with my PS5 controller, moved all the pieces, made all the colors, put the rude digs, spelt it out with different letters. Nothing is color coordinated. Because I had to like guess which color it was or just go close to it. Put a little backsplash and a sun in the background. So I spent a little bit of time making it all fancy. I have the same little thing that I have on my tattoo here, so I thought it was cool. I liked the little customization. It reminded me back of like Modern Warfare 2. I think they had this system in where you could create the layers and the designs, so it was fun.
Yeah, I've realized which one I did. I did the Nightfall Raven one. It's like because like you've got like the base Raven logo that you get, and then there's like a cooler like blue and red version of it, and I went with that one. It's just so cool looking. Yeah,
Nice.
that's for my
Nice.
decal though. Um,
Uh what
but I
about
love the
your mech?
customization.
Did you go through and change all the colors? Because at first I basically just I differentiated the body, the head, and the guns. Like I made them all different colors and just tried to play with that. And that's kind of just how I did going forward. Did you try to
I,
replicate a mech, or what was your approach to it?
I didn't replicate a mech per se. I did mess with the colors a bit. I went for like a darker color look. Originally, I was like red, and I swapped to like a red and gold, so like an Iron Man looking mech. Um, and I would swap around parts and stuff depending on what I was utilizing. Like when I used the Zimmermans, it would require less EN, so I would use like a different piece of armor that would have, it might have more weight load and stuff like that. And I wound up modifying my mech, and it kind of changed over time depending on who or what I was fighting.
Yeah. So, but in terms of the color scheme, did you go anything specific? Did you
Um,
have any like thoughts going in like, oh, I'm gonna go off of my favorite Gundam. I'll just go white, blue, and gold.
Originally, I wanted like a lightweight build, something that was like really light on its feet. You know, the reverse hinged legs
Yeah,
and stuff like
like I
that.
have up
And
here.
I
But yeah.
tried that at first, and I wanted to have like a sword and some more like fast paced type weaponry. But after a while, when you suggested going tank, and I swapped over to tank, I was like, man, I love just being this heavy tank and just rolling over people. It's just
Oh,
so much
it's
fun.
good.
Yeah.
I got away from the tank until the escort mission, and then I brought him back because I needed him. I was like, "Come back, old faithful."
The
He's
classic.
he's a good one, but I love in my third playthrough, I still had double stun needles. I had one Zimmerman, but I had the Coral Moonbeam because I just wanted to have fun in that playthrough. So I enjoyed that playthrough. It was a good one. Um,
Yeah.
what would be your, I guess we kind of touched on this a bit there. You're saying the tank build, but did you have any other favorite builds that you just really enjoyed playing?
Um, for a while, I really enjoyed the pile driver. Like it was like a
Okay.
pile driver build. I went a little bit heavy with um so what I did was I had they're almost like pulse missiles, so it would like explode with like a electric explosion, so it had like an AoE to it, and I would put those on the shoulders. I had I believe it was like a minigun on my right hand, and then I had the pile driver in the left, and that way I could, if once it was staggered by slowly whittling it down with the like the missiles and the machine gun. As soon as it was stunned, I'd run up, pile drive it, and that pile drive did so much damage. So I like that build.
Yeah. That pile drive video you sent me on the Cell 240 fight, unbelievable. I
Yeah,
realized I was
yeah.
doing everything wrong. That thing just melted away at the health. And that's what I mean. Like that fight needed to be a bit more, but I'll stay on builds for now here. Um, a build that I really enjoyed in the beginning was definitely the double chain guns. I loved having double machine guns and just like constantly melting everything. And I realized there's a build now where you can have the weapons bay and you can flip the machine guns. They reload in the weapons bay and you have double Zimmermans. So you just pop these things, then pull out the double machine guns again. They're reloaded and constantly do this to have just unbelievable DPS. So right now, I think that's the meta build
It sounds
uh,
awesome.
for ultimate damage. But I loved having the reverse joint, rushing around, having speed first. Uh, Somehow I was able, I think once I was able to pick up Walter's body piece, it was able to give me enough load to pick up everything. It's a strong chest piece, so yeah, that's what really held my build together after doing that run.
Oh yeah.
The
I was gonna say just the reverse like hinge legs or those are great for like verticality. And that's one thing that's super lacking with tank builds is you just don't have that verticality that the lighter frames will.
and getting into the legs here, I actually found the quadrupeds to be some builds that I really enjoyed using. Um, because it was able to hold a lot, it had a lot of verticality, and um it it's like its damage was comparable to the tank. I have a build here that's called the tripod, and I'm looking at it here, pure missile build. So I have the 12 missile things on the back here, and then two handheld missiles, and then you're just on the floating flying Death Star right there.
Yep.
I really liked it. It was quick. I believe I used it to beat the spider the first time because I needed something to
Wow.
fly up and hold up on that first because that laser beam just kept wiping me out. That was definitely a good challenge. More bosses need to be like the spider, and the spider needed a second phase where it got up off of the ground and just tried to get you.
Yeah, and it kind of does that, but it's like right at the end of the fight. That's one of my I would say one of the complaints I have. But man, you're right about like like where you're flying on the quadruped ones, and then you just float there and just launch your missiles. I did that for a couple missions, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah, they needed to do missions that forced me to like use my AC data more. I don't know if you used AC data a lot. I saved some builds here and there. I have a good
I
tripod
have
build. I have one called the Pink Taco, which is actually all pink with gold weapons, which I forgot I made. I have Cold Steel, which is one that I picked up from fighting Cowboy because he dropped in codes that I downloaded your code as well for
yeah
that
from
one
Melania.
fight. Yeah,
There,
I
yeah,
have
from Melania fight.
Lightfoot in my AC data, which is a moonbeam sword, shotgun, and two stun needles. So I had fun making the AC, saving them up, pulling them when I needed them. Oh wow, I have a super light build with missile launchers, a cannon, and a sword. Oh,
That
hey
makes sense.
Hannah. Very nice of you.
Moonbeam.
Moonbeam. Yeah, the Moonbeam is actually a throwback to previous From Software games. It shoots out a beam of devastating light and energy, and there's two forms of Moonbeam sword. I was absolutely thrilled to get the second one, but they lock it so far away in the game. You needed to get your hands on that sooner, I feel.
Yeah.
But those are where the coral weapons are, and they needed to be more devastating. When I got the coral weapons, I still like the meta could still outpace them, and I felt like that was a bit of a letdown, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. I think as you unlocked more of these weapons, I think they should have been significantly more powerful and maybe scaled the enemies to that as well. I know some of them are more powerful, but not by like any sort of crazy margin.
Yeah. Um, in more of the leg types, I feel like some levels should have restricted you to different legs. You should have been
Builds,
forced to
yeah.
do a tank level per se. You should have been forced into a tripod. Um, yeah, it gave you so much freedom. And if we were sitting here, we'd probably be like, those were the worst levels when they forced your builds and they didn't give you pure freedom. So. It's a flip of the coin. Remember these missions? How did you feel about the defend missions where they basically gave you a countdown and you had
I
to
hated
defend
them.
locations? I
I
know.
hated them.
They
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 were
were
my
some of
like
the
least
worst.
favorite.
I
I'm a mech. I want
that
to go destroy things. I don't want to wait to destroy things.
protect. I don't protect, I explode. uh that one and the escorts. I hated the escorts. There was obviously the one that I will wait to talk about for now, but the airplane one, I hated that one. I had to do it like 3 times because on New Game Plus Plus, they add an extra level of difficulty where you have all of these mechs coming in at the end that you have to fight off as well on top
Yep.
of the entire playthrough. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the escorts, but I will say and I don't know if I mentioned this before on the story. Oh no, I have a new game plus mechanic. We'll get into that. Manual aiming versus aim assistance. Did you get into this at all?
A little bit. I've found that the manual aiming is a little bit better because you just kind of, because if you're waiting for it to lock on, it takes a little bit longer than if you were to just manually shift it yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I did have my last playthrough all manual aiming. I took off aim assistance, and to be honest, I didn't find it to be all too much of a difference. If anything, I was probably more accurate in my new game plus plus, so uh it's it's probably worth changing, and it doesn't really raise the bar on difficulty, I found. Um but yeah, you can just kind of have to auto lock on yourself,
Yeah,
switch targets. Um, Swords in the game. How do you feel about the swords?
I loved them personally.
Yeah.
They're some of my favorite weapons, and like once I unlocked that one that does like the sweep, like I it was great. And the moonbeam one is super awesome, super long range. Um, and yeah, I like the swords. I do think that there should have probably been a couple more, but that's just because I like the swords.
They had a variety though. They had the staff,
Yeah,
right? They had
the
the whole staff.
coral, the moon, there's like
Yeah.
the base one, and then there's like the energy based one. And was there another one?
They had a whip.
Oh yeah,
They had a
they
chainsaw
had this. They had the spike, which was like the pile driver one.
and the pile driver. And I think something called a stun baton. If
Let me
I'm
see what I got.
if I'm seeing it correctly, assembly shop here, because you could only put them. The thing I was a little bit disappointed was I couldn't go dual
Moonlight.
swords. Like I wish I could have done dual swords.
Yeah, you can only put it in your like left arm.
Yeah, you could only. So there's the pile bunker, the explosion thrower. No, that wasn't a sword. There was a
Oh, the laser
chainsaw,
lance.
the
Like
laser
the
lance.
the laser lance is a really cool one. Actually originally when fighting the Melania boss, I used the laser lance because instead of like
Oh,
a
it's that
regular
super
sword,
stun.
yeah, it's long range, so if you charge it up, it charges the enemy and then it charges again. So like it's like a double hit.
Oh yeah, I
And
see that in the video.
yeah, it's really cool. They
I'm
had a laser
surprised. Like
dagger.
they
There's
always
actually
show you
I would
just
say there's a good
destroying an ad. The plasma thrower. That's like almost like a yo-yo. A lot of these see you don't play around with. You get them all in bulk sometimes.
yeah. Like I never
And
used the
that's kind of
dagger.
there's a little bit like weapon overload. A little bit too many weapons.
Oh, I kept calling the pile driver. It's the pile bunker.
Pile bunker, yeah.
Yeah. Ashmead gores the target with a massive steel pile.
Stun gun. And there was like the jammer. I don't they force you to use the jammer. And like that's such a like terrible, like of all the builds to force me to use in that one mission. Like I hated using the jammer. Um like force I'd like forcing me to do some things, change it up, but like don't force me to use the jammer. Oh my gosh. Um how did your builds evolve throughout the game? Is your first playthrough versus your new game plus playthrough versus your final playthrough?
I would say the first playthrough was the most varied. I swapped between a bunch of different things. My second and third playthrough, I mostly just stuck with the build I knew that was going to work because for the most part, I was mostly just trying to get through it. So I saw the rest of the story or the rest of the endings.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In that first playthrough, I was definitely experimenting, trying different things out, seeing if the missiles worked, seeing if the songbirds I used a lot of times because once you unlock those, you realize, oh wow, I can just stun the characters with all these back shots. So that was very impressive to see. And then you're just playing around with the guns. But I found myself going to the tank builds to take out these huge bosses. That was very valuable. Kind of crutch that I would play through on sort of a lighter bipedal, and then when I get to the boss, switch out. I'm like, okay, bring in the tank, bring out the double machine guns and the songbirds, and let's get it done. Um, but yeah, my build progressed throughout becoming double jointed in the end. I was able to do it complete meta with the needles and the zimmies and just take out the entire playthrough like that. And then I wanted more fun, so I went Moonbeam in the end. Um, and then everything changes when you hit the escort mission. And I don't know for you, did you have to go back to the drawing board or did you just erase the escort mission where you have to take the mining ship in chapter 1, that mission they give you with the burning
I,
wheel people. Oh my god, it was so brutal. In my that one mission alone was maybe the most difficult instance of the game I've seen in a little bit. It blew me out of left field coming in chapter 1 like that.
it it was definitely really interesting. But for me, the wheel people, I found a really good way as to how to deal with them. Like as they're approaching and getting really close. For me, since like my final build, I was doing like dual bazookas and then like dual needles, and this was like the super. This is how I was like beating stuff super easy. So I'd shoot one bazooka as it's approaching me, dodge out of the way so it misses me. It will get stunned and fall over after getting hit, and then I just shoot it one more time, it dies. And I didn't really have, I maybe fought the boss twice,
No, wow.
but didn't really have any issues.
Damn. Because it was so hard. It was so hard. I went to the drawing books. I looked up things online. I'm like, oh, so if I hang out at the top of the crater here, in the crater, I have the advantage, and they only come at me 1-to-1. Uh, did you ever use the kick? I'm seeing now that I'm using the kick in the background. I only discovered the
I
kick in like New Game Plus.
So I mean, I knew about it and I unlocked it, but I didn't really mess around with it too much. I usually tried to keep a kind of a mid-range distance on most of my enemies. That's probably because my FCS was like aimed towards like, because like you know how that modifies your targeting, how good you are at. And I was like best at long range and mid range, so I tried to keep not super close, but you know, close enough.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. Yeah, the FCS would um, amplify
Help with
your
target.
targeting systems
Yeah,
for medium, close, or well, whichever one it gave you stats for. Um,
yeah.
that was a cool. I mean, the building itself was a cool aspect. The generators, down to giving you all the different colors. Uh, I gotta say, once I discovered that the generator was the aspect giving me that cool coral booster, I then changed my build around the generator because I just wanted the cool color. I was like, blue, ew. I don't need blue is silly. I don't know. How did you feel about having to change your generator out, your FCS, as well as
Boosters.
the boosters?
Um, yeah, I thought it was interesting. I almost wish there was a bit more like staple ones that they introduced to you, or maybe specific brands they tell you are for specific builds. Just kind of to get you started for you to figure it out on your own. But for the most part, I didn't really have too much issue swapping between them, just finding the right balance of matching what I needed.
Yeah, just making the load work for the legs and the guns you want, essentially.
Yeah.
Uh, Getting into the gunplay, what were your favorite weapons that come to mind? And what were the guns like if you had to ignore the meta? What were the guns that maybe you wish you played with a bit more?
Guns that I played with a little bit more.
I wish I used fire more. Like I never really built up that aspect. I wish I brought in the chainsaw more to the game. There's a cool like the opening trailer shows you using those timed explosives on the ground, the explosion thrower, which I'm just seeing now I've unlocked obviously. So I wish I just like played more with those kind of aspects of the game.
Um, for me, I mean, I did use the flamethrowers for a mission, and it's honestly pretty good, especially if you're clearing through a lot of little guys, and if they're like all clumped up, the flamethrower kind of burns that stuff. As far as like weapons, I wished I used more was the Coral rifles. Probably, I didn't really get to mess too much with them because for me, I used a lot of heavy weapons, machine guns, um, and bazookas are a lot what I used, or even hand missile launchers as well. I like using those.
Yeah, those were big damage. I wish I used more laser builds. Like, see, I wish it gave me
Yeah.
a reason to use lasers more, but like I didn't. There was nothing. There was like, okay, I could take it or leave it. But I know that lasers were pretty cool. Like the diffuser cannon, the the laser cannon that had three that popped out, like that was always looking cool on a build. The little drones I tried to use, but I felt like they were never that effective. So there was some aspects to it I wish, just they felt better, but that is oh wow. Yeah, I was like, "Oh, there's no way we'll go
Um,
on longer than that." And then
yeah,
we went on longer
hey,
than.
it's a great game, so I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you get lost talking about
absolutely.
it.
Let me see. Where did I get the background? Let me get that back on here. Stop and play. Will it replay for me? Next I'll get into the next topic while I figure this out. How did the coral weapons change the game for you, if at all?
I didn't really use them that much. I messed around with the little coral blade because you talked about it, and that's a strong blade. But
Yeah.
I didn't really mess with the coral rifles or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't really impact the game, and I felt like it should have been more than it was. There we go. We'll just get back into that. I feel like it was locked away too far and it was too little too late. I was already set in my ways. They should have definitely had some strong ass coral cannons that replaced the stun needles. They didn't have anything like that. Um, the moonbeam definitely was the coolest thing I found out of it. And the rifles, they were just too little. Like the amount of time it took me to charge up this beam was just too great for it to feel meaningful for me to bring along and change my build for. And they were heavy on energy. Like they just zapped your entire build. You needed so much to carry that.
Maybe like if they had like a coral SMG, that might have been more effective. Like that would have been fun
Yeah,
for those that wanted to be quick and fast and stuff like that. But I didn't
absolutely.
see one like that, unfortunately. Coral
Um
dagger.
yeah, maybe like a Darth Maul hook too. Like they did have a laser sort of pole. They could have gone coral pole, but yeah, there could have been more added. You could have unlocked more, replaced, even upgraded perhaps your existing weapons. But hey, it's cool. They added a couple. I'd say there's about 4 or 5, I believe, different coral weapons to collect, and they're available in the new game plus. So you have to get all the way there to access that bunch. Make sure you watch
Yeah.
videos because you can pass by them. Other than making sure you collect all the battle logs and I believe the other one is finish the arena. Yeah. Speaking of the arena, the boss fights. How did you feel about the major chapter ending boss fights? How did Baltus feel? How did um that experience sort of catch you in the beginning? Did it sort of put you in your steps or sort of stop you in your tracks, kind of like the helicopter again? Because for me, it kind of felt like the toughness was in the beginning, and then it kind of got easier throughout, and I kind of lost that challenge aspect to it.
I think you're right because I believe in the beginning it had some pretty solid challenges. Like you had the helicopter mission, and then the wall climber was a couple missions after that, which you had like the heavy defense kind of boss with where you're fighting with Rusty, and then at the end of chapter one, you're fighting like Baltus, and that was like the first really big hurdle for me fighting him because every single time he'd get to that second phase with the blade, the fire blade,
Fireblade, yeah, cover the whole screen. What up, Crow?
he
Geek the
would kill
sneak,
me.
ayo.
He'd kill me so
Yeah,
fast.
it was
And
devastating, and bosses didn't carry that weight anymore afterwards.
yeah, afterwards, I mean, it was chapter two only has 3 missions, which I think is what kind of hinders it, because chapter chapter two, at the end, you're fighting the spider, the laser spider,
Yes,
and
which is a challenge. That was a challenge, yeah.
that was a solid challenge. I would even say the beginning of chapter two, where you're fighting the oven guy, where it's like the oven with the chainsaws. That
Oh
was a
yeah,
kind of a
the
cool. It's a
the
cool fight.
sweep cleaner.
Yeah, yeah. And chapter three is when it slows down because it's the longest chapter, and it doesn't really have a lot of big boss fights in it until the very end, which is like the ice worm, I believe.
And the ice worm feels
Yeah, the ice worm.
gimmicky.
It's
It
yeah, it's a gimmick
feels
boss.
Yeah, it feels like there's no real skill barrier. Just kind of sit and wait for this thing to pop its head and shoot your harpoon at it. Until finally New Game Plus Plus when they're like, "Oh, there's also an attack squad here." And you got to fight a couple mechs as well. It's like, well, that's all you're going to do to spice up this fight. It should be more of a challenge. Like they could have done more with that worm, I feel.
Yeah.
They already bring up the gimmicky thing when you're with Rusty, right? And they're like, "Oh, what? There's more?" And then that worm comes, and you don't do anything, and it just kind of goes away. Um,
Yeah.
they should have added more difficulty, I feel, to that thing.
Yeah, or at
But
least survive that first encounter where you run into it. Make
yeah,
it fire more explosives or fire more things at you. Make it a
make
little
me
bit more
be
of a
like,
challenge.
"Oh yes!" Like, give me that oh moment that I like yell out
And
and like,
in chapter three didn't really have that. And that's the sad
no.
part. Like chapter four did though with the Melania fight. Um, like
But at the
that.
same time, it was only because Melania challenge was so big. Like I felt like she was a little easy. I don't know. Because there was a meta
I
that could
I
just
had
take her down.
I had trouble, but as soon as like I swapped, I like looked up a build. I was like, okay, and then after a couple attempts, I was able to get her with once I changed the build to that, and that was like um what was the build? The songbirds,
The
right?
songbirds. Oh, so you use songbirds. Because at that time you have access to double stun needles.
I did, and I didn't use them because I didn't really think they were that powerful. But the second playthrough, I used the sun needles, and it was a cakewalk. Like beat her like first or second try, and yeah, and I guess you're right. Like there, certain builds probably shouldn't be as strong as they are. That's I think that's the way it's gonna be.
Like,
Um,
if she was immune to anything but lasers, that would have been a different fight.
yeah, no, you're right. Like if they made I guess try different weapons that weren't what you, because like if you were constantly changing weapons, it would feel different, right?
Yeah.
Um, and they just didn't
No.
have that.
No.
But yeah, that's my take on it. Is if I think chapter three shouldn't have been so long, and it probably wouldn't have felt like such a lull of nothing for a long
Because
time.
they break in exploring the underground into a three-part mission, right? And
Yep.
it feels dull. It feels like, and then at the end of it, they have what feels like a knight mech with a shield and a sword. And I'm like, okay, this is supposed to be the Black Knight. And that's one phase and he's done. And I feel
Yeah.
like it should have been
He felt like a
greater.
mid
It should
boss and not like a real boss.
Yeah, it
Like
should have been a two phase. He should have been way bigger. Like, bring on the difficulty, especially in New Game Plus. Like, don't hold punches, I feel.
yeah, I agree. But it's like I think there was some solid enough boss fights, but I just don't think that there was enough challenging ones.
Yeah. But I will say also, whenever you completed a boss, the slow motion explosion was a great thing for me. Like, I felt
It
in
was a
other
nice feeling.
games there are not like clippable moments, but like this game has so many blockbuster clippable moments where you're just blowing a mech out of the sky, or like Melania, she explodes, or Cell 240, she explodes in a choral explosion that's just so massive it destroys your mech, and you're left somehow. Do you even understand how you're saved in that situation? Because somehow I assume air puts you into a mech Walter left underground
Yeah,
somehow.
it
Like,
doesn't explain how you got from one mech to the other. Like
yeah,
they stole your mech, but then you get it right back after you return. So I never understood like what happened. Like why did I like lose it and then I get it back almost immediately?
exactly. Because once you get to your garage or whatever, you're given back all access to everything.
Yeah,
Um, I will say that the air fight, it made me a little bit dizzy. I made multiple attempts. I ended up going with a build where I actually didn't have to move. I just like sat straight and like I didn't move, and I just kept locking on, hitting stun needles every time she'd stop for a second, and just machine gunning. I did not move the entire fight. It was a no move build. So
that's
if you're
interesting.
if you're looking, and I clipped it, I've been meaning to make it, if you're looking to play this game real easy style, they have no move builds, which really make bosses and challenges easy to get through, except they make you do that helicopter. There is no getting around that helicopter in the beginning, and it is a challenge that you
Hey,
must overcome. But after that, you can buy tank treads and kind of walk through the game.
Yeah, if you wanna go tank build, it's definitely the easiest way to play the game because it gives you more health, more survivability, and you're just able to survive through all these bosses attacking you.
Who was the boss for chapter 4? Why did I not record that?
That's the Melania one.
That's Cell 240. And then the
Yeah.
boss, okay, it was the spider that I was missing here.
The
And the
spiders,
spider, did
chapter
you use
2.
it? Did you use a tank build for the spider as well?
My first time, no.
I think I used
Uh,
the tripod.
what did I use? I think I used missiles on my back. I think I used vertical missiles, so they launched up and down. And I think I swapped those out for ones that shot straight forward because its like weakest spot was underneath it. And then I had the POW bunker thing because that's where I did a lot of
What?
damage. Yeah,
Yeah,
I for the second
on the
phase or like
spider.
when the phase where it jumps up in the air and it has like the lasers on its legs, I would fly up and then use the POW bunker to just stab it and like do a bunch of damage to it.
Because you could do, oh, I haven't believe I talked about this, but the traversal, the assault boost was just an epic feeling. Like that initial just power thrust forward and you're going to do some damage. That was a cool mechanic. I love that maneuverability aspect in the game. The assault boost definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Um, but
And it worked wonders.
what did you use against Air Boss?
Air, I believe I used um that far to the first time. Remember I went shotguns because she got up close sometimes. Um so I was wielding shotguns and then I can't remember if I was using plasma launchers because she had that shield on her. I think I used like plasma launchers for her. So it would deal damage uh to that because she has that bubble on the second phase, I believe, that you have to destroy it before you can do any type of damage. And once I destroyed it, I'd just be like blam blam with the shotguns, did a strong amount of damage.
Yeah, she was one of the only bosses to have a dual phase. So, um, I don't know why a lot of bosses lacked it, such as Walter. And the Walter fight for me coming up to it, I didn't understand why I was even like, why Walter was obviously being corrupted by the coral at some point. But why? Why was he fight? Like he didn't want to fight me. You could hear it in his voice, but somehow he was fighting me. Do
But
you know
we're
why he was?
it's interesting because he was using like a coral based mech,
Mech.
but at the same time he was trying to destroy the coral because like the
Yeah.
whole point is you're ramming the ship or like the floating city into um into the thing that's storing all the coral and which is also holding like the Rubicon souls. And so he's trying to stop you from stopping it. So it didn't make sense unless he used the coral that they've been storing to power this mech, and that's what he's using. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, it was kind of like loosely put together. I honestly thought he was going to be the true final ending, but I guess those were the elements they used and that's the fight we got. He kind of I wish there was a second phase. I think it was kind of missing that
I
huge
was
fire
expecting
sword
it.
aspect. I same. I was kind of let down by it, but like Cell 240, you get a second phase. It's clear. It's
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 so cool.
there. It's extremely cool. She gets visibly more difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, Baltus is even missing a second phase. Like, you get second phase like halfway through the health, but you should have defeated Baltus, then it rise again. Like, I just feel like there was
Yeah.
not as many of those, and I wish there was more.
Like I love that aspect of it. It's like, good work, Raven. It's time for you to head out. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait, what's that power rising? Oh no,
Exactly. The coral
it's
reactors are coming online. Dun dun. Walter's alive. And he just
yeah.
sheds his weapons and he's got this freaking sword and he's ready to take you out.
I just think of Elden Ring with Melania, where she dies and then the body like comes back up, and like you see that she has her form has changed. She's grown wings. Like there's a couple bosses where like their second phase they'll grow wings and become visibly stronger. Like Moog
Exactly.
is one.
In Elden Ring, they often consumed like another soul, right? Even in Sekiro, the guy's freaking arm shoots out of his neck, right? And he becomes the grandfather, grabs the
Well,
sword. Like,
yeah,
there's always
one
a transformation, and I feel like we didn't see the only transformation we see is the All Mind fight, to be
um
honest, in a second phase where
one
something's
that
visibly changed.
I was gonna say another one that kind of reminds me of uh it. Crap, I can't remember what I was thinking about. Um,
No
but
worries,
yeah,
take your time.
I do think that there needs to be more either multi-phase or something where it shows them, because like even like Moog Lord of Blood in Elden Ring, he has a second phase, but he doesn't die and then come back. It's
Right.
more
More of a
um
Baltus, but it's
where
visibly recognizable.
it's recognizably different or stronger because he grows wings, right? And he starts flying around and doing like new attacks. Um,
Yeah.
or even the first main boss of uh, 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 uh the first like guy in the um what's it called, the castle, in the castle where you fight him and he sticks his hand into the dragon, and like you visibly see the dragon fire breath that he now has, and he adds it to his like abilities. It's just so
Right.
cool,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
more of that is welcome.
And I feel like they have this layer that's separated from this animated production. And yes, there's a lot of blockbuster explosions that feel really cool and I love it. But they are missing on a little bit of storytelling there and more dramatics, more transformation in these boss battles, which From Software, really tried to focus in on. Like, you fight two of these mechs that come in, and it feels like, all right, I gotta take two guys on versus one, bring it. And then New Game Plus Plus, they throw three at you. Three of plus plus plus, and then
Like
Raven's flying in to kill you, and it's like a timer counting down. It's like you got to kill these two guys before it becomes 3-on-1. And so there's cool countdown aspects like that, which I really enjoyed.
yeah, I do wish like, because like the one cool thing about like Malai's fight, it's not so much that it has wings, but it symbolizes wings with its abilities. And I wish, even if it was like a mini little cutscene in between the fight where it would just flip it like, and then say, oh, like it's time to burn the coral, and then like the light that they're using to propel themselves turns from like blue to red. More of that. Like I would have loved a couple more fights that kind of did that.
Yeah. Um but they did do well with their boss fights. I would say the
Yeah.
Cell 240 definitely becomes an iconic boss. One transformative was the All Mind, where he literally destroys Izanagi, I believe his name is, and becomes the other creature, the All Mind, which is like this perfect. I may be getting
Yeah.
that wrong, in my apology, but
It's he what is it? Yeah, it's like one of the
the
guys.
pilots,
Yeah,
the guns, the red team.
yeah, and I wasn't huge
It
on
was a
him
loosely
being
put
the
together,
guy.
yeah, to become the
Like
All Mind.
I would have much rather like Walter or someone shown up like and be
Or
like
Carla,
this
or
or oh yeah,
Walter,
oh
yeah.
make it Carla where she's like this is what I've been planning for all along and she becomes like the this evil mastermind that's been enacting like hacking into All Might and doing this on purpose so that she can have all the power like or
Exactly.
even tie it in because like Air even starts out with saying like she uses a call sign from like the first Rubicon War and that she shouldn't have been that aged or that old like she couldn't have been alive during that time
Oh,
period and make it be like she's been using All Might to siphon coral to keep her alive or something like that. And so this is her. She's like, I've now collected all the coral and I will live forever. That would have been cool.
yeah, that's a great twist. And then
Yeah.
really bring Carla up instead of her having such a hollow ending. And then Izanagi somehow rising the ranks and becoming the chosen one on the All Might.
I
Like,
didn't
what? Where?
yeah, I didn't
Why?
get that.
I walked through him. Like, he was, I don't even recognize when I fought him in the story, to be honest. Maybe somewhere in chapter 3 or 4. He didn't feel tough.
Iguazu
Iguazu. I'm thinking Izanagi like Destiny 2.
is G5 Iguazu.
Yeah. Well, jumping on to, well, first before I leave boss fights, did you have any more to say on the boss fights? No, no. The
I think I think we covered it.
new game plus mechanic. How did you feel the new game plus how did you feel as a mechanic to replay the game and add replayability? Did it feel stale, or was the slight changes to the missions enough to spice up the gameplay?
Yes and no. Um, yes, I did like I thought it spiced it up a bit, but um when I think back to games where you beat them multiple times over to get to see like a true ending and stuff like that, usually they add um a little bit of a spice to it, or uh, maybe for your second playthrough, it's not super in depth, but that third playthrough really changes the game. And I will say they had quite a few new missions on that third playthrough that kind of surprised me, but it wasn't like it didn't feel like I was playing like a new game on the third one. There's still a lot of missions that you did the same. Same with the second playthrough. It's a lot of the missions are the exact same as I played on my first playthrough, and I think it could have done a little bit better, but overall, I still thought it was good. I enjoyed the little bit of change up that they added.
What up, Lo-Fi? Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, I feel like there was variety that got me excited. When I would approach a mission that previously had two, there'd be a third, or when there was only fighting a certain amount of mechs, they would always throw more at you. For instance, the worm boss fight, they threw an approaching squad. But
Instead of an actual new
there
boss fight.
their customization, their freedom to build whoever whenever you want, sort of it didn't it locked them out. I don't know, because usually in a new game plus you change your character completely or something changes, but there didn't feel like enough. There should have been more rankings of weapons. Like, you shouldn't have got weapons that you got in chapter 2 that you can take to the end of New Game Plus Plus. Like, I should have only had access to blue tier weapons throughout my whole new game for my whole playthrough. And then in New Game Plus had a new set of weapons that I had to build upon and use those. Like I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know. I
Maybe
did
maybe
enjoy, yeah.
I was gonna say maybe introduce a new type of enemy variety called like coral bots that required
Yeah.
you to use coral weapons to fight. That would have been cool. Like because then now
Yeah.
you're wanting to it's giving you incentive to use those coral weapons that you might have unlocked after beating air at the end of the first playthrough.
Enemies now have coral shields and you need to break through them like a bar like that. And now you need to at least keep a coral rifle on you. So your build constantly is changed. So
Yep.
yeah, things like that. But I did very much enjoy the variety. It didn't feel like I was playing the exact same story again. It a lot of the levels changed, a lot of the encounters were different. I'd say, hey, this was this here. Even the conversation right off the bat with the red guns, they give you a decision which you didn't have in the first playthrough, and then you're all of a sudden facing two mechs by yourself while they sit and watch, and they're like, "All right, buddy, go on and take them." So there's a lot of variety that I enjoyed in New Game Plus Plus, but I don't know. I There was always more when you're on the critic side, but when I'm playing through it, I definitely enjoy myself. I blasted through it. I just wish there was more of a rank system, and I didn't get the most powerful guns in chapters 2 and 3. Like, I just wish there was more to get, more upgrades, better generators, or something I was fighting for. But
I mean, I mostly spent all my money on more items, but I wound up just leaving them in my assembly because I didn't really need them at the time. I was good enough
yeah,
at that point.
I just did it for the achievement. Oh, this guy was a bit tough. He's got a shield and he's got a big laser cannon. But the only thing is at the end of the day, like I just take him down with my meta build. Unfortunately, like he doesn't
Yeah,
stand a
yeah.
chance.
He gave me a little bit of trouble the first time I fought him, but I think it was mostly because it's towards the end of the like it's right before a checkpoint, and so they make you
Right.
fight him with maybe like one health one you've already healed once, right?
Yeah, there
And
I'm
so,
destroyed.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. No, it's good. And then if you want that S clear, it puts the barrier there. So if you want to go out and search for the challenge, it's there to get those S clears.
Definitely. The
S
game has challenge.
Yeah. Escort the mining ship. Obviously, you didn't see it as difficult as I did. I was absolutely. This is a mission they hide in New Game Plus Plus, and you have to take it to get the true ending. And I was just absolutely blown away. First of all, they blow up the goddamn mining ship in the first 5 seconds of the mission. So you're no longer escorting anything. Like, why even call the mission to escort the mining ship if you're just going to blow it up?
Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
just fight an
Right
army of
mix.
these spinning wheel Elden Ring bullshit fire stuff, which gave me such an issue. Like I had to go look up how to take these things down. But I will say I loved that I was trying over and over again. I was rebuilding my mech, going to the drawing board at New Game Plus Plus when I thought that I had it all figured out. I thought it was brilliant of them to just put this you're stumped. It wasn't maybe a you're stumped for Maker, but it was definitely a big you're stumped for me.
I like died one time, but it I as of before, the wheels are a lot easier to handle. Like if you have a strong, like powerful, like explosive weapon, and that's what I kind of used. It knocked them down, hit them one more time, they're dead, and I slowly picked them off one by one. I will say my first playthrough fighting any of those wheels was a pain in the ass. It was hard to do, um, but after I figured them out, it wasn't hard.
they give you the wheels in chapter 3, which I think is crazy sometimes. Like, From Software spent all this time developing, making these wheels, and they put them in 2 levels in the entire game out of 58 missions. They put them in 2. Uh, because they're locked away in the cell mission, and it's down a path that you go if you want the sword. So you can completely miss them 100% if you just play through the game right away. But I find that mind-boggling. I will say we're on to the final boss talk. I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but I wanted to say, did you ever try PvP?
Nope. I didn't. I
Nope.
didn't try PvP.
So I
If I
got
was,
into PvP
mm,
and I just got absolutely smashed. The person in there is obviously using a weapon bay modifier, so they pulled out a rifle, they pulled out a moonbeam. I got blown away so quickly, I was unable to stop it. And I have not gone back into PvP yet. It's not a ranked based match system. You simply like go into these open rooms and lobbies, kind of like Super Smash Brothers. Kind of reminds me of. Uh, but yeah, it's tough out there. I definitely, if I get back into PvP, I have to change out my build, but it's a bit sweaty in there. I can only imagine.
yeah, I feel like you're gonna see a lot of people running the metas, songbirds, or
Yeah.
just. Uh, I mean, you saw the coral sword, and maybe if there was a little bit more balanced matchmaking, I don't think you should have fought someone with a coral sword right off the bat in PvP. Um,
No, not after I first unlock it in chapter 3. Like I'd never even seen coral weapons before. And then they put me against that person.
yeah. Um, and to me, it's not as like robust as something like Elden Ring, where usually there's like ways around it where you don't really have they implement it if you're playing with friends, but which is good because then you have someone else to help you fight that person, even if they're powerful. Meanwhile, in this one, you're just kind of screwed because it's a 1v1.
Yeah. It's the arena. So it ends quickly as you've
Yeah.
experienced before. Uh Moving on to the final boss, the All Mind. I thought this was a proper From Software ending to me. I thought the boss transformed into a greater form. I thought there was definitely a challenge aspect there for me. Not a super huge challenge aspect, and I even fought it on New Game Plus Plus Plus, so I thought maybe even a little bit harder would have been nice, but it was definitely there. You had to, if I'm not right, there was a bunch of ads that come at you in the beginning, right? And you
Yep.
have to take them all
Tons.
down. Yeah, and they got the
Yeah,
blue lasers and stuff.
I was constantly circling and like whittling them down. I would try and only use one heal for that whole first phase.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I would just keep running around till I killed them all, and then fought the guy. And I think at half health is when the two things. No, it hits second phase, and then in second phase was when the two like spider laser guys show up, and then you have air helping you out. And I think at half health is when air gets removed and then you're fighting alone for that last half of its health. And yeah, it was, to me, it was just kind of play it smart, and I beat it in a couple of attempts. It wasn't, but then again, at that point I was doing the meta. So
So you had the double stun as soon as you hit, and then or you were in a tank at that point.
I was tank. I was fast tank
Bazookas.
though because yeah, I
The
had
short,
bazookas.
yeah.
You can.
Yeah, so that was
I
easy
was
to
gonna.
whittle down, I'm sure, because if you get direct hits on those ads, I mean they're melting away quickly.
Yep. And just like I know my weapons are on the slower side, so I would just that's why I just keep circling them, like running from all their like shots that they're firing. And then whenever I would get that, my rocket would reload, and I would just blast one that was close to me, and keep doing that until all were done except for the main boss.
Yeah, and then that second portion of that fight, I mean, you see the All Mind. It has the one form. We learned it before, Iggy,
Iguazu,
and
or
Iguazu, and then he gets destroyed, right? And then
yeah,
gets replaced by the All Mind. And the All Mind is what that replaces him is complete AI. Is that what's happening? The all the computer system, or is that a person inside of that?
I thought it was Iguazu was taking control over it, and that's the whole second phase. Is like at first you're fighting All Mind, but then it's Iguazu takes control of All Mind
Ah, that's how it worked. Okay. Because I knew
because
there was
because
something that happened in there. And then you start calling out his name and saying it in the second fight. Like, is that you in there and stuff like that? Right?
yeah. Here, I'm gonna
Air
pull it
gets
up real.
confused about it.
Yeah,
And that fight, for instance, you see a completely new ad type, which again blows my mind. They hide another ad type behind the 58th boss or the 58th mission. There's like floating towers with laser beams coming out of them, which I just ignored, to be honest. I didn't even pay any attention to them. I just went straight for the boss damage. I just thought these things are taking too much to take down, too much of my ammo. That was the other thing about ammo. Like, I felt like there was no impact to ammo. Like, it doesn't matter how much I used, I always finished the mission with excess. Like, I never ran out. Like, I feel like the ammo economy should have been, it should have made me manage it more. But if you want to
maybe
manage it
more. Yeah.
more to get the S class, then they put it there. So I get that aspect because in S class, if you want that perfect one, all of these things count. You got to use little ammo, you got to take little damage, and you got to be perfect. But yeah,
From what
I'm watching the end.
okay,
Nice to figure it out. So the All Mind definitely had that creepy AI Siri sounding voice. That was a cool aspect. The speed of this thing and the size both gave it that big boss feeling. The double phase and the arena, the boss arena that you fight this thing in is absolutely epic. Like a huge satellite dish uh, is
yeah.
what it looks like that you basically fight inside of. And it is a epic um, showdown. But I definitely went reverse joint, double shotties, double stun, like you see here. Oh no, actually, yeah, on my final one, I may have changed up a bit. I may have used. This is definitely what I ended it with, though. The reverse joint, this build that you see right here. I always use Walter's head just because it looks the coolest. I think that's awesome to use. And then the Coral boosters because I like those.
Yeah, I I just looked at uh the actual cutscene for transition from phase one to phase two. It starts out with the female voice of All Mind saying, "You are aberrations to the plan," and then it shuts down. The system whole shuts down, and then
Right.
it comes back up, and it's the guy's voice.
Ah, yeah, and then I remember him being
He says
like,
irregulars will bring order to chaos, and then that's who it is. It's Iguazu like taking over.
yeah. And he just didn't seem like if there was characters like Snail turns into Baltus, which was which was kind of cool evolution to see him transform, but yeah, it should have been Rusty, right? Or Rusty should have came back in some form. Like he was just the other
Yeah,
canon character.
like maybe if he had become like the All Mind, that would have been kind of cool too, because like he was always kind of your friend, and like all along
Right.
he's like maybe he goes like, "Sorry to do this, buddy,
Yeah.
but my dreams come first," and like or like because he's always wanted to be number one or something like that, and that's why he needs all the like the choral energy.
But yeah, there's a couple different ways it could have gone Carla, but I can't even remember Igawazu's motivations or like what he was in it, even in it for. So
I don't know, you know.
yeah, it's an odd
I
character.
saw
I
him
know
like
in the
two
arena,
times.
yeah, they describe a lot of people and their things. Like I remember Invincible Rummy was a drunkard, so he was the drunkard of the group. I know they like to have those in From Software. But as we close this out, what rating would you give this game out of 10? If you had to give this rating. And if you want me to start, I can start and give it my rating.
No, no, I'll go
But
first
you can
because
go for
I feel like you're gonna give it a higher score than me.
okay.
Um, I don't think this is the best From Software game, and I don't think it's probably on the lower half for me.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm hovering around like an 8.5. Like I enjoyed it a
Okay.
lot, but I I'm leaning towards 8.5 because to me, New Game it grew on me the more I played it, the more builds I tried, the more things I did, and I vastly enjoyed it by the end of the game than when I first started. So yeah, I'll say 8.5. Let's just go with that.
Nice. Okay. Well, apparently the first iteration of the critics were giving high scores out, so don't expect this all the time if it happens again, because anyways, I would like to give the game, and it's a respectful 8.5. Like the game is it looks really well done. I had a little bit of problem with the architecture of some of these buildings you fly around. I feel like it almost feels off scale being this big and going through. Like there's this off scale feeling to me. I don't know if you
Well,
could relate to that.
I think it's because you never see the size of your character. You never see the human size because
Yeah.
there's not real like humans
No, there are no
in
humans. You
yeah.
don't see a human model.
And maybe if you did, it would maybe that scale would like really show itself at that point.
Like a human walking up and putting his hand against it. Like some show
Or
me something.
you go to like a city and then they're like all screaming and you see all the little ants like moving away because they're running away
Yeah.
from the mechs battling.
That would be insane. That would make me feel bad too. But
Oh, it would also make the villains that much more like yeah, I'm gonna kill this guy.
yeah. They definitely chose, I feel like generating all of that would be an extra hassle, and that ended up on the chopping block if that was an idea of theirs.
Maybe the next game we'll have little people walking around.
I myself, I am definitely going to give it a not a perfect score, but I will give it a oh, it gave me those awesome feelings of accomplishment when beating the final boss. It was absolutely epic in its explosions and blockbuster moments, clippable moments, screenshots, the traversal of being super fast, having that dodge speed, being able to jump buildings and leap across towns. Uh, for me, it hit a lot of the right spots. There was some things lacking, like maybe a bit more difficulty and consistency, but I mean, who can argue those things? The missions I didn't like, it barely had. You had two defense missions, so you can't fault them. They needed some variety. I give it a 9 out of 10. It's definitely one of my higher rated games this year, but that's for sure. And then the average out of the two of us, which would make 87.5. So we'll say that as a combined total here.
Yeah.
I think for one, it'll get nominated as Action Game of the Year. It'll be in those nominations. I think it definitely has a shoe in for that spot on the roster, but that's where I think it'll land. I think they knew that going into releasing a $60 and not a $70 game. Do you think it'll make any nomination charts there?
Yeah, definitely like action, maybe action RPG. I don't know if it's gonna like. Well, it'll probably be under action. Yeah, action game. Um, but I don't know if it'll. I don't know if it'll be on the game of the year list. It's probably trying to think back all the games I played this year. It's probably in the top 5 for me of this year so far. Um, personally. So it's in my running right now, but I mean, we still got like Spider-Man and a couple other games coming out that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, I think it's gonna get a couple of maybe soundtrack, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
I
the
did,
music. We never
I
even
just,
talked about the music. It was so
I
nice
mean,
being in the garage,
it
hearing
has that
that
like
nice.
metal tracks. It's like it's
And
so
then in
good
the
for like a mech.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. There was a lot of great musical elements to this game, which we did not cover in a 2-hour review, but it was well done. I don't know the composers. Unfortunately, I don't have it on my notes here, but
I can look it up real quick.
from epic battle scenes with just the right like rock in the background to really just get you pumped in, death metal, and then like
So
in the garage sitting chilling with that ambiance. I just was like, oh yeah, jamming while I'm just customizing my mech, changing the colors, making all my guns golden, making my head this cool shiny color. So I definitely appreciated that.
So it looks like it was Kota Hoshino who worked alongside Takashi Onodera and Shoi Miyazawa um,
Wow.
for the sound.
Well, they did excellent job. I think the music hit all the right tones when they needed it to. I think we just needed, like a little bit of anime, like a 30-minute episode cut up into pieces, throw it into the story. I think that would have added some elements for me to really bring it to the next level. But hey, it is a great game. We're giving it 8. He's giving it 8.5. I'm giving it 9.
Close
So
to a
it's
9.
7.5. And that's what we're saying. Hey, it's definitely a go out there and play if you have access to it for me. But yeah, I will end this show before we hit the 2-hour mark. If you have any final thoughts on the game, what do you feel on this?
I say if you like Souls games, this is definitely a pick up and play. It's a great game. Highly recommend it.
Awesome. And blockbuster explosions, very cool lasers, clippable moments, all that. Definitely enjoyed. Well, until the next time, take care. See you later. And keep gaming.
Grove, grove, Why try to believe in me? Why try do I even need to? I die with the season leaves. I glide with the season breeze. True, my mind so easily spooked. I ride just to be the me who finds hype super decently smooth. Nice type, but as sick as beats.